Well, this is an odd silence. So maybe we should just go on and start, okay? Okay. Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Navigation Balancing Act, Addressing Care of Self and Others. We've done a couple webinars through Georgia Core and Georgia Society of Clinical Oncology and Cancer Patient Navigators of Georgia. But this is our first attempt at doing a half-day virtual mini conference in which we're going to do a little bit different. We'll do some didactic presentations, we'll have Q&A, and we will also have some breakout sessions so you have an opportunity to converse with each other. Because in our past programs with our navigators, we always like to talk to each other and understand that we are not alone in what we're doing. So our purpose in doing this program is to have an opportunity to share with what's been going on. As we were deciding about what conversation we wanted to have with this program, we looked at how things have changed in terms of the land of COVID that no one can really deny. We know that we're impacted emotionally, psychologically, physically, not just us, the people we care about. So we have to remember to take care of ourselves first. And that's what we felt was needed for this particular time in our lives. So I hope you will find it beneficial today. I already told you that it's a joint venture with Cancer Patient Navigators of Georgia, GASCO, as well as Georgia Core. Katrina and I both work for Katrina Wave. we both work for Georgia Core, and we and Angie Patterson and Vicki Steine and also Jill helped to be on planning committee to design what we're doing today for you. In terms of housekeeping, number one is, as Katrina said before, maybe some of you weren't on, we do have a chat feature. And if you have questions as we go through the day, when it is not a question and answer time, go ahead and put your questions in the chat. Katrina will be monitoring those and make sure that we address all of your issues as we go along. She's also popped into that chat. If you didn't get the pre-test, there's a link to the pre-test in the chat box for you to use today. If you are requesting continuing education hours, we do have them both for nurses and for social workers, but you do need to let us know which you are. So in filling out your pre and post test and evaluation, if you want to get credit for those hours, you need to put your name on all three. If you don't care, you don't have to put your name. Please let us know once again if you want nursing hours or social worker hours. We will have breaks. I know that it's a long day to have 3.5, 4 hours or something. So we built in breaks for the day so that you can get up and stretch. Also keeping in line that you don't have to go get in line somewhere at the restroom or go walk down 30 minutes down the hall of some hotel. Most of us can walk down the hall a little quicker in our own homes. So we're going to give you 5-minute breaks after the first session and after the second session. Okay, what else do I want to say? Again, please complete the pre and post test and evaluation and put your name and discipline. No conflict of interest has been identified with any of the speakers that we have today, just so you know that, or the planners. Again, we are bringing together a program that was supposed to be in response to healthcare workers and COVID. So our speakers will address issues and responses related to the uncertainty that we're all kind of feeling. So in terms of the flow of the day, after I'm done, we will have Vicki speak about the emotional and psychological elements of self-care. We'll have a break, we'll have breakout sessions, have another break, and then we'll have Jill. And that's how the day will go. We hope to wrap up everything by noon or a little bit after, but that's why we put some a little bit of cushion into the day so that if we find during our breakouts that we need a little more time, we have time to do that. Okay, so just to briefly introduce everybody, I didn't bother to tell you who I am. I'm Alice Kerber, and many of you have met me. I'm a clinical nurse specialist in oncology and genetics. I've worked in the Atlanta area for more than a long time, longer than many of you are alive, for about 45 years and been in oncology all that time. In that time, I worked in hospitals and I have worked in the last 7 years, I've worked for Georgia Core. So I've been more associated with public health and community health and working with women at risk for breast and ovarian cancer. One of the loves of, I did go, undergrad, I should say this. Undergrad, I went to University of Virginia and I got my master's from Emory. I'm married, I have a couple kids. They're off doing their own COVID kind of things. And I have a dog too. One of my favorite things to do is row on the Chattahoochee River. And two of my friends that I row with are Vicki Steine and Jill Binkley. So if you're a friend who rows with me on the river, you get to be in some of these programs. Isn't that great? Okay. So next person I want to introduce, Katrina, our friend right there. She works with me at Georgia Core. Also, if you're a friend who works with me at Georgia Core, you get to do these things too. And Katrina and I have become very adept at doing a number of these programs. It's been a lot of fun. Katrina has her master's in public health. She went undergrad to College of Charleston. She got her master's from Georgia Southern. She got married less than a month ago. Originally planned to be married in October, but then decided to move that up and ended up being creative and making the most of this COVID time and looking like she had a really wonderful time. The pictures are beautiful. She's now program manager for all things survivorship and navigation at Georgia Core. Lets me work with her from time to time. And she has just been named the project manager for a new grant we got from the CDC related to colorectal cancer. So we're very happy to have her here too. All four of us, by the way, the reason I'm introducing all of us is we will also be moderating the breakout sections. So you will be randomly placed in one of those little breakout sessions when we go to that. Next, I want to introduce Vicki Steine. Hi, Vicki. Vicki has her doctorate in the science of holistic nutrition and is a licensed clinical social worker. She's in private practice in the Roswell area, I believe. Marietta, Roswell, Marietta. I think of them all together because that's where I live too. She's in private practice and she specializes in treating neurological disorders, addiction, and trauma, works with children, adults, families. Knowing that the brain and the body are connected, her guidance is a combination of lifestyle education, mind and body therapies, and talk therapy in terms of her practice. She also rows with me on the river. And she just found out that her new single that she'll be rowing in is on the way to Atlanta as we speak. It just doesn't get any better. Now we need the fog to go away early in the morning so she can get out early before she has to go to work. Last but not least, we have Jill Binkley, who was highlighted in a couple of recent magazines because she is such a famous person. Jill Binkley is a program director and founder of Turning Point Breast Cancer Rehabilitation. She founded this organization how many million years ago? 14 years ago? 14, 10? I forget how long you've been diagnosed. You're muted. Anyway, a while back, she can tell you. She founded Turning Point when she identified the need for women with breast cancer to have more specialized kind of information about what was changing in their lives and those sorts of things. So it is a nonprofit 501c3 organization, and our office is about 3 miles from my house and the boathouse as well. Always significant when you go rowing in the morning and then you go to work. Once again, balancing care of yourself and what you do for others. She has extensive experience as a clinician. She is a physical therapist. She's a researcher and educator in the field of breast cancer rehabilitation and is working on a couple of new wonderful projects across the state of Georgia as well as internationally. She's known for collaborative efforts with other groups. She's a certified lymphedema therapist and has published and presented locally, nationally, and internationally. She's a breast cancer survivor and exercises with me on the river. We like to go out in our larger boats, which we can't do right now because of COVID. So once again, everything about our lives is impacted by COVID, but there are things that we can do to make it just a little better and recognize what's really important. So I think I'm done with what I have to say for now. I do once again welcome everybody. Please put your questions into the chat and we look forward to hearing from you. And now I will turn it over to Vicki Steine. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. I just want to say good morning to everybody. I am really delighted to be here today. I think that the work that all of you do is incredibly special and important, but equally important that you learn how to take care of yourself. And sometimes you probably know a lot of this, but I think we all need that reminder. And I think particularly during COVID, we may have lost sight of how we take care of ourselves. So today, I'm going to be giving you some tools, some that you maybe have never heard of before, practicing, using my practice regularly that are super effective. Um, and these are tools that not only you can use with yourself, for yourself, but I hope you also share them with your family and with your patients. So as Alice said, I have a doctorate of science in holistic nutrition. I'm a licensed clinical social worker. I'm in private practice. If you want to get in touch with me after today, this is my contact information. So you can either email me at Vicki at Your Healthy Structure, or you can call me on this number. This is my cell phone, but also my business number. I also have a website, which I failed to put up here, which is www.yourhealthystructure.com. So I have blogs and recipes and all kinds of information on that website. So I invite you to go check that out. So I want to dive into today when we are taking care of people, and I'm in the healthcare field. You know, I work with people with ADHD, anxiety, depression, Tourette's, obsessive compulsive disorder, trauma, addiction. So, and I've been working as a therapist since 1984. I've been in inpatient and outpatient settings, and you know, one of the things that we know is that we, just like they tell us on the airlines when we get to fly, that when you're with somebody who needs your help, whether it's a child or an elderly person, or in your cases, people that you are working with cancer, it's very important that we put our oxygen mask on first. It's really important that we take care of ourselves first. And I think that we forget that. And I'm going to make an assumption because I don't really know who's here because I can only see 4 people. But I'm going to assume that everyone here, or almost everyone here, are women. And women traditionally are caregivers, and we often put ourselves second or third or fourth after our jobs and our children and everything else that needs to get done. And what I want to remind all of you is that if we deplete ourselves, then we don't have anything left to give. And if you've ever experienced burnout, you know what that feels like. So even though if you have a very busy day and you decide that you want to use one of my tools and it's only for 5 minutes or 10 or 15, that may be just enough to get you through the next day. But if you put that off and you don't do it over a period of time, you will run dry and you will not have anything left to give. So I'm glad that you all are here today, that you took half a day off to come and learn and interact with each other and support each other. So just thinking about the different kinds of stressors, when I picked out this slide, this was probably at the beginning of COVID. And I want to say that as a therapist, this has been an unusual time because as a therapist, I've had my own life experiences, but I don't always have the same experiences as the people that I'm treating. However, during COVID, I, like everyone else, am experiencing COVID with everyone. And so my days have been like this roller coaster. Some days have been good, some days have been bad. I've had anxiety, I've had depression, I've had panic, I've had all of it while I'm trying to address other people's issues that are the same or different. And in my case, working with the people that I work with, they already have anxiety and depression. So when you layer these other stressors on top, things really get out of control for a lot of people. So the picture to me was really important because I do feel like from day to day, this is how it has often felt, that we are registered. But obviously some of the stressors for you are unique. As navigators, you have had the fear of furlough. Money has changed. People don't have as much. Organizations don't have as much. Working from home, sometimes that can be a good thing, but if you're working with patients, you want to be with your patient. So there is obviously a stressor when you can't be with a patient. In my own life, I have had 2 people that have had to go to the hospital, not for COVID, but for other things. And it's a very odd feeling to drive up to the emergency room and drop off a loved one. Usually we hold their hands and we go in and we speak for them a lot of times and we listen because they're not able to hear. And to just drop somebody off and hand them over to somebody that you don't know is a very uncomfortable feeling. So certainly if you are attached to your patients and can't be with them in the way that you want, or working from home, also can be challenging. Like today, I made sure that the door to the room I'm in is closed so the cats don't come join me. But when you're working from home, you've got animals, you've got children potentially, you've got partners, and they can be intrusive and they can be meeting you at a time when you need to be paying attention somewhere else. Navigating kids at home, of course, with school starting, this is a brand new stressor. I'm hearing from my clients that school has been a little bit better in the fall than it was in the spring. I think the school systems are better prepared. However, if you have children of different ages, if you've got a young, let's say an elementary school kid, and you've got a middle schooler, their needs are very different. Their attention spans are different. I've had families who have had to increase their Wi-Fi, who have had to buy computers, and not everyone has the money to do the things that are needed in order to be prepared for school. And if you are trying to work while your kids need you because they're in school, that's yet another distraction and another thing that is pulling at you. And then, of course, when I wrote this, we weren't sure if people were going back to school or not, so people were being given the option, and there were parents who were really trying to navigate, should I send my kid to school, should I keep them home? And then eventually the schools made that choice for people, so that actually juggling older parents. Many of us are in that sandwich generation where we have older parents along with our families, our own families, and whether those parents have health issues or not and having to deal with them. My parents, I'm very blessed, are in their 80s, but they're in good health. They live independently, but I worry about them. I worry about them getting sick. I worry about them being lonely, trying to figure out a way to visit with them. Now we have some other relatives who are sick and can't be served the way they need to be. So it's a stressor on my parents because they can't serve their generation. So this whole extended family piece becomes difficult as well. And of course, you're worried about your own patients. You're worried and frustrated whether you can't be with somebody who is dying or who's hospitalized. And frankly, some of us just have too much time at home. Like Alice jokes about us being on the river. The river is, for me, a lifesaver. And if you haven't ever rowed or had some sort of passion, it might be hard to understand, but being out there once, for an hour a day or an hour and a half a day gives us a chance to be in nature. It gives us a chance to exercise, and it gives us a chance to be with other people, all of which are really huge stress reducers. So I know Jill's going to talk about exercise later, and I strongly encourage all of you, if you're not finding time to get outside, you really need to get outside, even if it's just to walk or if it's to walk barefoot in your front yard and feel the ground beneath your feet. Literally, that's called grounding. Very important to connect to the earth in order to alleviate some of the stress. So we all need to find a way to get out of the house. I know I find myself getting excited to go pick up dinner with my husband just so I can go for a drive. So when we're stressed, what happens? We go into the fight or flight response. And this is a very physical response. It is wired into our DNA. It is our survival response. And it's a wonderful response when we are truly threatened. So when we lived in caves and we came across a saber-toothed tiger, having the fight or flight response was useful. But when we are dealing with all the stressors that I just mentioned, it's a little less useful. So what happens is we end up feeling like we need to fight. We feel like a caged animal, like this cat, or we need to run. It'd be great if we could fly like an eagle, but often we just need to get away. Or we freeze on the spot, and we freeze with fear. And being frozen with fear doesn't always mean that we literally are frozen. It might also mean that we just feel stuck, that we feel trapped and we don't know what to do next, and we can't even figure out what the solution to our problem is. And when we go into this fight or flight response, we are in a very physical reaction. Our cortisol levels go up, and our body is responding to a perceived stress or a perceived threat. So our pupils dilate, we sweat, our digestive system slows down, our heart races, the blood goes to our arms and our legs. So it's a very physiological experience. And it's great, again, if we need it. But when we have this continual level of stress and we stay in that stress response, it wears and tears on our body. And it is not a good place to be. It's not healthy. And it has a huge impact on our system. I have a slide from another presentation that actually talks about how much stress impacts the health system alone. And it's literally millions and millions of dollars. And it is one of the main reasons that people end up at their physician's offices, because of these stress responses and how it is changing and affecting the body. These are the three main areas of the body that get affected. It affects our nervous system. So we might have mood issues, and some of you may have been experiencing some of this during COVID. I mentioned that I'm pretty open about, I don't normally have anxiety, but I have had anxiety during this period. I have had some panic attacks. I have felt depression. I have been irritable. It's not fun. And sometimes we wonder, like, what the heck is happening? This isn't me. So we have to take a step back and look at what is happening and how do we take care of ourselves in order to readjust and move forward. Also impacting sleep. It can also impact your blood pressure, increase your heart rate, and raise your cholesterol, and create a risk for heart attacks. It affects the immune system. It suppresses the immune system. So if you think about that, we're talking a lot in COVID about wearing masks and washing hands and social distancing. And those are all external things that we can do to protect ourselves and the people around us. But we don't talk a lot about the impact on our immune system. I actually worry about all the hand sanitizers that we're using and killing all the bacteria, because we need some good bacteria in our lives. And I'm wondering, what are we doing in the long term with our immunity? When you add the stress and what this stress does to our immune system, along with, I'm just going to, because of my nutrition, I have to throw this in, along with not eating well. People joke about the COVID-19 or the quarantine 19 or the quarantine 15, and it's kind of funny. And I even heard this great thing. It went viral last week. It was some woman it was like a gospel song, and she did all her own backup singing. It was amazing. And she was talking about social distancing from her refrigerator. And it was all about getting too close and social distancing. And it was funny, but there's some truth to that we are eating, and we do a lot of comfort food eating, which means we're eating a lot of sugar, and sugar also suppresses the immune system. So if we have a lot of stress and we're not eating well, we're suppressing our immune system, and we're all worrying about getting sick. And now we're heading into flu season on top of that. So I really encourage people, I'm glad you're here today. We can talk about, I'm going to teach you these methods of helping to manage stress so that you can actually boost your immune system. You can have stomach issues. As I said, your digestive system slows down, so it certainly impacts your digestive system. It affects your endocrine system, so a loss of libido, although I have heard of a lot of babies that are getting born in January, so there are younger people who have had plenty of libido, but many of us probably are not experiencing quite that. A lower sperm production for men, and increased period pain for women, aches and pains and other joint issues, and lower bone density. So obviously important that we get a handle on our stress and our stress response. So part of managing stress is learning how to be more resilient. So I like to use this analogy that if you, let's say you're at the beach, and Alice, this is a picture of one of our fellow rowers' beach houses. I was lucky enough to go with some of my friends to her home. And it was a beautiful day, as you can see. So if you imagine like grabbing a boogie board or grabbing a surfboard, and it's a day like this, and the water is flat, and you start to paddle out there, and everything is great, but unbeknownst to you, there's a storm brewing out in the ocean, and you can't see it. and you didn't know it was there. And all of a sudden you realize that the waves are starting to rock a little bit, and the water, the current is changing underneath you, and you can feel that something is happening, something is shifting. And at that point, you have to decide, do I turn around and go back? Do I ride this out? If I go a little further, will it get calm again? And then suddenly these waves are getting really big, and you have to decide, do I ride right into the wave? Do I know how to roll over the wave? Do I turn sideways? Or do I freeze and get the water crashing over me, and suddenly I'm tipped off my board and I'm looking, I don't know which end is up, and I can't figure out where I am, and I don't know how to save myself. Those, you know, that's what happens when we get caught up in this stress. So learning the skills to learn how to ride it out, learn when to turn back to shore, learn how to figure out which end is up if we do end up losing control. And I love this quote: when we learn how to become resilient, we learn how to embrace the beautifully broad spectrum of the human experience. We can't avoid stress. And certainly in the middle of this pandemic and trying to manage all these things, we are going to have stress. So the question is, how do we stay resilient? How do we continue to bounce back? How do we take this in and make and create as an experience that we learn from, that we grow from, and that we share with each other? So this is a little bit about HeartMath. HeartMath is a wonderful organization. It's called the HeartMath Institute. You can go online. They have tons and tons of material on their website. And they are a very, I don't know if they're a profit or nonprofit, honestly, but their programs are very inexpensive, and many of them are free. They've actually been offering some free and reduced rate products during the COVID pandemic. So I recently took a class and became a HeartMath practitioner. They teach, they've been studying the heart for 25 years. And what they are looking at is how the heart is impacted by our environment and by stress. And what they have found is that the heart is where we actually take in information, interpret information, and then the heart sends that information to the brain, and then we interpret it with thoughts. So they teach that if we can manage our heart and our heart rate along with our breath, then we can also help to manage our thoughts. And we can also help to keep our stress responses at a reasonable place, because we are going to peak from time to time, because it just happens, and we need that. I mean, we need a little bit of stress, we need a little bit of reaction, or else we're all going to just be sitting on the couch. So this is a picture. I actually have this this software on my computer, and what I can do, it's like biofeedback. I will, I don't know if y'all can see this, but I have this little finger piece, and I also have an ear clip, and I can clip it into on a person's ear, or put their finger on the pad and hook it into my computer, and I will get a chart that looks like this based on what their pulse rate is. And you can see when somebody is frustrated, there is this incoherent heart rhythm, meaning that the heart rate is up and down and it is not balanced with the breath. So with HeartMath, when you breathe in and breathe out, your heart does change its beat. So, but what we want to do is slow the heart rate down, slow the breath down, and get the heart and the breath working together. And you can see in the second part where this person was experiencing appreciation, how coherent, how those wavelengths became so nice and even. Now, I've been practicing HeartMath for several months with my sensor, and I have yet to get it to look quite like that. That takes a lot of practice, but it is important to do this, and it's an easy thing to do. So with HeartMath, they have this great little chart. And if anybody wants a copy of this, I have it in a handout that I can email to you. So just email me. In fact, any of the handouts that I have on these PowerPoints, if you want a copy, I'm happy to send it to you. Just send me an email and I'll send it over. And if you want the PowerPoint, I can send that too. It's fine. I don't mind sharing. So this is HeartMath's renewal and depletion plan. And basically the premise is that when we are in that stress response, we're depleting our body, as I mentioned earlier. And if we are in a calm place, then we are in a renewal place. And so there's a graph, and you can actually chart how you're feeling and practice moving the chart from the anger side and the irritability side to the happiness and excitement side. So this just gives you a visual on what's going on. And there's a forum on filling this out when you practice the heart math breathing. So these are the instructions for heart math breathing. I am not reading this to you. We are actually going to do this right now. Okay, so what I want everyone to do, there are different kinds of heart math breathing, several different kinds. There is one called just heart math breathing, which is simply putting your hand on your heart and breathing in and breathing out in a rhythmic way. So if any of you have ever done like diaphragm breathing or yoga breathing, there's a big concentration on expanding the lungs and breathing through the diaphragm and pushing your tummy in, and I teach all of that as well. This is not that. This is literally putting your hand on your heart. Well, you don't have to, but I like to because it helps me to focus. And just breathing in and breathing out, like 5 breaths in and 5 breaths out in a rhythmic way, not the breathe in three counts and breathe out 6 longer counts. It is just a rhythmic, easy, you don't have to work hard at it. The quick coherence technique varies this a little bit. You start out with just the regular focusing on your heart, breathing in and out. But then the second piece is to think about something that makes you feel calm and something that makes you have a wonderful feeling, whether it is, when you're holding a baby or you're gazing at your pet and you have that sense of there's nothing else in the world that matters at that moment, but just that love that you're experiencing, that unconditional love. Maybe it's a special place like the beach or being on the river or a place in the mountains that you enjoy, or maybe it was some other accomplishment that you had where you felt really grounded and really good about what was happening at that moment. So we start with the heart breathing, and then we will add in this thought and this experience. And while you're doing that, you will feel yourself start to relax. And when I have people hooked up, what I find is that when we add in the visualization, the coherence increases much more quickly. So the whole idea of heart math is that you learn how to do this deep breathing all the time. Meaning they want you to learn how to do this with your eyes open. Like a lot of times when we teach deep breathing, it's, take a minute, clear your space, take a deep breath, put on some music, and it's an event that you have to take time for. Heart math breathing is about being able to do this on the spot where you are in any situation. So if you are stuck in a line at the grocery store and you're late somewhere and you start feeling yourself getting amped up, you can do this right there. You can do this in the car. You can do this when you're with a patient. You can do this with a family member because no one will need to know that that's what you're doing, but you are able to bring your stress level down in the moment. So I'd like to take a minute to walk everyone through this process so you can feel what it feels like. So first, I want you to just put your hand on your heart if you would like. I like to do it, like I said, I feel the warmth of my hand and it helps me to focus on my breath. And I want you to just start breathing in and breathing out in a regular flow. And imagine your breath flowing in and out of your heart. And allow your breath to get slower and deeper. And when you're ready, I want you to imagine something really peaceful. Imagine being with your pet or a partner or a special place. Picture how warm your body feels, how calm you feel as you focus on your breath. And if you want, you can remove your hand from your heart and see if you can still maintain that calmness. But still imagine your breath moving in and out from your heart. Take just a few more breaths. And when you're ready, you can come back to this space. And I don't have a way, I know there's a way to do this to see a show of hands, but I just wanted to see, maybe Katrina, you could tell me by a show of hands, could you feel yourself settling in with this? Could you feel a shift in your energy as you settled into the breathing?
Yes, if you
good.
go to the bottom of your screen, you can do a reaction and you can do like a clap or a heart.
Oh yeah.
Show of hands.
Oh, I see a heart. Awesome. Oh, wonderful. I love that. So I love this exercise because it is so portable. You take your breath with you wherever you go. So just remember that it does take practice. So if you're feeling really anxious and you try to do this, I've had people say, oh, it doesn't work. Well, it doesn't work if you just try and jump into it. You'll see at the bottom, it says recommendation, practice 3 to 5 times a day for 3 weeks. You really, and again, it only has to be 15, 30 seconds, doesn't have to be a long time. And you can do it when you're doing other activities. In fact, that's what HeartMath actually wants you to learn how to do, so that when you start to breathe, your body recognizes the message that, oh, this is a time that I don't have to react in a big way. I can just chill and I'm going to be okay. So I really encourage you to maybe set aside some time, maybe right when you wake up in the morning, excuse me, maybe right before lunch or after lunch. Maybe you can practice when you're watching TV in the evening, if you get to do that, or when you're laying in bed before you go to sleep. So it's fairly easy to build it in. I find the more I build it in, the more I crave it. I really like doing it. And it's sort of like being calm and doing the breath work breeds wanting to do more of it. Okay, I want to talk about emotional freedom technique, or tapping. And this is probably one of my, well, all 3 of these techniques that I'm showing you today are my favorite techniques, but this is one that is one of my very favorites. I use this, I've been using tapping now for about 10 years in my practice. And I don't know if any of you guys have heard of it or not. Well, I'm going to go back to this for a second. So tapping is using acupuncture points in order to interrupt our thought process. So when we think things, and we've all heard, lovely quotes like "you are what you think," and thoughts can, if you change your thoughts, you can change your behavior. I mean, we all know negative thinking breeds negative feelings and negative actions, and positive things can breed positive. So what happens when we have a lot of negative thoughts? And those negative thoughts, it might just be the stressors that you're having. It could just be, oh my gosh, I'm overwhelmed. Oh my gosh, I can't do all of this. And you have sort of this running regular dialogue in your brain. When you do that, there's a saying about the brain that says that what fires together wires together. So when we have the frequent thoughts that are repetitive, frequent thoughts, that is wiring our brain in a certain way. And when we wire in a certain way, we believe that to be true. So if you believe you're overwhelmed, and if you tell yourself you're overwhelmed, if you tell yourself you can't do this, then you probably really can't. And so the whole idea, there's a therapy called cognitive behavior therapy, which is when you have a negative thought, you combat it with a positive thought. So I really can't do this. Well, yes, I can do this. I'm going to try. So we rewire the brain. emotional freedom technique or tapping adds in a piece of the body. And this is the part that I like the best, because our brains and our bodies are connected. The last time I checked, my head was connected to my body with my neck. And so what's happening up here is happening here. And if you think about, let's say, you know, you're going to the beach. You haven't been away. I'm going to the beach in 2 weeks and I'm really excited. And so you get this feeling in your stomach. It's like, oh, now that feeling in my stomach is excitement. I'm anticipating something great. But if I have a negative, I could have a negative interpretation and say, oh, that feeling in my stomach, I remember that. That means I'm nervous. That means I'm scared. So some of it is the body and the brain interpret each other what's going on. So we have a body sensation and we put a thought to it. Sometimes we have a thought and then we have a body sensation. So this morning I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I have a presentation today. I'm a little excited. I'm a little bit nervous. Now my heart is beating and my stomach is churning a little bit. So sometimes our thoughts impact our body and sometimes our body impacts our thoughts. Emotional freedom technique interrupts that. We have, in Chinese medicine, there are meridians, so there are electrical currents that run through our body. And when we do tapping, we are using acupuncture points, the same as we do with needles, but we're using our fingertips to interrupt the energy when we are having this, some thoughts. And by interrupting the energy in the way that we've always thought about things, and then changing the way we think about them while we continue to tap, we can shift the energy around that emotion and around that event and around our perception of that event. So I'm going to show you how this works. The first thing I wanted to show you, I put this in because, again, I know you guys are busy and you're with patients and you're doing a lot of things, and I wanted you to have some stuff that you could use on the go, essentially. Tapping is something that you really kind of have to sit down and do for a few minutes, although I'll show you some shortcuts. But this is a really great tapping point exercise that you can do anywhere. And the person who wrote this calls it her oh my God points. So you'll see where I have in my slide, it says, oh my God, but with a dash in the O. Just so you know, I'm Jewish, and in Judaism, we can't write the word God because we're not supposed to. So we write a dash in the middle so that we can write the word. So that's why that reads like that. People always ask me. So these are points on your forehead, right above your eyes, and then there are points on the side of your eyes. So if you put your fingertips lightly on your forehead, covering those points, and then your thumbs on your temple next to your eyes, and breathe deeply. And this is a diaphragm breath. So this is breathing in through your nose and out through your mouth. And it's breathing all the way down to your diaphragm. So your tummy will come out as you breathe it out, as you breathe in rather. And you will push in to exhale. So breathe in and hold it and breathe out. And breathe in. And breathe out. Breathe in. And breathe out. And breathe in and breathe out. You can relax and you can see you do this, 1 to 5 minutes. When we go into that fight or flight response, the blood leaves our brain, which is why when we get really upset, we can't really think straight. Literally, you can't think straight. So when you do this, when you push those points, you're actually bringing the blood back to your brain. So if any of you have students with test anxiety, this is a great thing to teach them to do before they go into a test. Brings the blood back to their brain, but also a really great thing for you to do when you're on the go and feeling that stress. This is just, I'm not going to go over this today just because we're going to run out of time. But this is reprogramming an emergency response loop. So it's using the same points to go through an event that has scared you, that maybe is haunting you, a trauma of some sort, to use those same pressure points and envision that, that event until the event fades away. And I'll let you read this slide. This might be something that you would want to do with someone else in case you have a reaction, because sometimes when we relive a trauma, we re-experience it. So I would caution you about that. But if there's something little that's bothering you that you want to work through, this would be a way of doing that. So tapping. So this is called the basic recipe, and these are acupuncture points. And like I said, we use our fingertips to tap on these points. Now, you can tap or you can gently press. So with tapping, this obviously would look really weird if you were in a public place to be doing all of this. But I'll show you ways that you can just press on points so that you can still utilize the points and utilize the tapping experience with in a public place. But this is a really good tool to use when you can take a minute and go in your bedroom or go in a quiet space. And I mean, I have students that I tell them to go to the bathroom at school and do this. So anywhere that you can, that you can hide away for a little while and do this. And just like heart math, your body becomes in tune to tapping. So if you get really good at it, meaning you've done it a lot and your body is used to this whole thing, it doesn't take much to settle you down. Like I've been using tapping for 10 years. And if I find myself getting anxious, if I just tap on one of my favorite points, I really only have to talk about it for a couple minutes and I'm done. I'm like, my body just responds to it and it's like, okay, we're good. And I can move on. So let's start. The first point is right here on the fleshy part of your hand, where the pinky is, on the between your pinky and your wrist. And that's called the karate chop. And it's called that because if you were going to do a karate chop and break a piece of wood, that's where your hand would hit the wood. Okay. And when we do the karate chop, we're going to do what's called a setup statement. And we are going to say the setup statement 3 times. And we're going to tap on the karate chop through that whole time. The next point is on our eyebrow, and it is closest to your nose. And then the next point is on the side of your eye. The next point is underneath your eye, underneath your nose, underneath your bottom lip, on your chest, like on the collarbone. If you're a man, if you were wearing a man's tie, it would be about approximately where the knot would land. Underneath your arm, about 4 inches below your armpit, or essentially where your bra strap might be, or where the bra would be, the bottom part of the bra. And on the top of your head. And there are multiple points on the top of your head. So there's no, if you just sort of tap around on the crown, you'll be hitting those points. Now, again, I know this looks really weird, and you probably don't want to be at work going like this, but you can press those points while you're sitting. Like you could be listening to somebody, I've got my arms like this and I'm listening. I just look thoughtful, right? I'm listening, but I'm hitting this point right here, or I'm here, or I'm here. Or if I'm sitting at my desk because I've got a coworker driving me nuts, I could put my hand on my head in my hand and just look like I'm resting my head in my hand and be getting these points. Okay, so there are ways of using these points and still not looking silly. But, and it is equally effective if you're pressing a point or if you're tapping a point. I find that some people, if they are super activated in their anxiety and reliving a trauma, the tapping is a little activating for them because they're already on alert and they've already got that startle reflex kind of going. So they prefer just pressing those points. But for day-to-day stuff, I find just tapping, and it's just a light, gentle tap. And there's not a particular number of taps. We just, as you're speaking, you tap on a point. And then when you go to the next sentence, you tap on the next point. And then when you go to the next sentence, you go to the next point. So I'm gonna, and this is the basic recipe. There is a longer version of this. I'm not gonna teach you that today. We don't have time, but you can always come and see me and I'll be happy to share, we could do a session and I'll show you. I'm giving you a script. And I have other scripts. So again, if you want to email me, you can, I'm happy to send you other scripts. I have treated everything with tapping, from incest and trauma to helping people get on planes, phobias. I helped a kid who was afraid of eating an apple to eat an apple because he had had a choking incident. I have dealt with everything and everything in between. It really does work on all of this stuff. I mean, any issue that you have. But this is a great little script because any feeling that you're having, you can actually put into where it says anxiety. You can change that, that word to reflect whatever it is you're feeling at that particular time. So I want to walk you guys through this so that you can see how. I'm gonna just read it out loud and tap through the points. I want you to follow me. Normally, if I was in my office with you, I would say something and then I would have you repeat it after me. If you're doing it on your own, obviously you just say it to yourself or you can say it out loud. And you can do this as many times as you want. Now, at the top, I wanted to say one more thing. If you're not honest with yourself about what you're actually feeling, this does not work as well. Your body knows the truth. And if any of you have ever read the book called The Body Knows the Score, the body keeps track of what we're feeling and knows the truth. So if we aren't honest with ourselves when we do the tapping, then our body knows and the tapping won't be as effective. So don't be afraid to be honest. Nobody is judging you. You can say whatever it is that you need to say. But I'm going to read us through this script. So we're going to start with, and notice that you start with the karate chop and you start with the statement, even though. Anytime you start tapping, you always, the setup statement starts with even though. So even though I feel anxiety, I deeply and completely accept that I have these feelings. And I really want you guys to either read it along with me or say it along with me. Even though I feel anxiety and I wish I could do something about them, whatever something is, I deeply and completely accept that I have these feelings. Even though I feel anxiety, I deeply and completely accept that I deserve to have these feelings because of all that it means. And then we start on the eyebrow. I feel anxiety. Side of the eye, I feel anxiety. Under the eye, I really feel anxiety. Under the nose, sometimes I feel anxiety and it's overwhelming. On the chin, sometimes I feel anxiety and it makes me feel out of control. On the collarbone, but I can't help but feel anxiety. Under the arm, I wish I could not feel anxiety. Top of the head, but I do feel anxiety. On the eyebrow, I acknowledge that I feel anxiety. On the side of the eye, even if I don't like it. Under the eye, I still really feel anxiety because I have every right to. Under the nose, but I wonder what it would be like not to feel anxiety. On the chin, but I don't know right now. On the collarbone, because I still feel anxiety. Under the arm, but I would really like to not have to feel anxiety. On the top of the head. So someday I hope I can feel differently when I'm ready. Now, you will do this 2, 3, 4 times. Then I want you to switch to restating this in a positive way. So you can see at the bottom, I say words to build into the positive round. It is safe to feel calm. I am worthy of feeling calm. I deserve to feel calm. So then we would move around to the eye. It is safe for me to feel calm. Sometimes it's not safe for me to feel calm. Under the eye, I am worthy of feeling calm. Under the nose, I deserve to feel calm. Under the chin, under the lip, I am ready to feel calm. On the collarbone, I think it is safe to feel calm. Under the arm, I am worthy of feeling calm. Top of the head, I deserve to feel calm. And then you would stop and take a deep cleansing breath and check in and see, are you still feeling anxious? How anxious are you feeling? Do you need to do another round? If you do another round, you'll see that the statement needs to say, instead of even though, you add in even though I still. So even though I still feel anxious, even though I still feel whatever. Now, I also want to say, this is a very basic script. If you were in my office and I was working with you, I would ask you more details about what's happening. and I would add the details of whatever is happening into the script. Okay, so for example, where it says eyebrow, where I would start with like eyebrow, I'm just going to show you. I feel anxiety because my kids are driving me crazy. I feel anxiety because I can't go into the office and I really miss seeing my coworkers. I feel anxiety because I haven't been able to see my patients the way that I want to. I feel anxious because I want to hold their hands and I want to be with them, and it's just not the same on a computer. This is really hard for me. This is breaking my heart, but I'm going to be okay. And do you see how I'm adding, you add in what's true for you, and there's no right or wrong way to do this. You do this negative, I call it the negative stuff, but you do the honest statement first, and you do that round 2, 3, sometimes I'll do it 5 times until I watch the person that I'm with, but you'll have to experience it yourself. I can feel the energy shift. Sometimes they yawn, they start looking like they're bored, which is great, that's what I want. But you can feel like the whole shift, and that's when you can go into more of the positive statement. Sometimes you have to go into the positive statement to feel that shift. And I want to say, especially with anxiety, anxiety is one of those emotions that really protects us from what we think is danger. And so when I say in a tapping sequence, it is safe to feel calm, a lot of times people don't really feel like it's safe. Like I can tell, and so I will usually say, maybe it's not safe, or maybe it's not safe right now. And I also try to make people laugh. Like I try to make stuff up that will make them laugh and giggle a little bit, because when you laugh, you're breaking up that wiring and changing the way that they feel. So you can do this as many times as you need to until you feel settled down, okay? And like I said, you can do this with other people. You can do it with your loved ones. You can do it with your patients. There are lots of videos online that help you with this. I've got scripts. I have a video on my YouTube video channel if you want to go look that one up under my name, under Vicki Steine. And if you'd like to set up a time with me, I'm happy to go through this with you. I've got some other scripts that are a little different, but equally good. I've got one where in between each statement, you take a deep breath. A lot of people with a lot of trauma like that one because there's a lot of breathing built into the script. I'm happy to send that script to you if you want to just ask me for it. You can just print it off and follow it. It's really self-explanatory. So that is tapping. Do I have a few more minutes, Alice? Yeah, okay. So this is my other favorite tool, which is called brain spotting. And brain spotting is, it is also a mind-body tool. Some of you may have heard of something called EMDR, which is a eye movement, rapid desensitization therapy tool, where the therapist uses their hand to go back and forth rapidly in front of the patient's eyes. And sometimes they use a light box that blinks across, and the person follows with their eyes, and they process their emotions and their traumas and their events. The person who found brain spotting was an EMDR therapist to start with. And his name is David Grand, and he was working with an ice skater, and he'd been working with her for a year, and she was trying to go to the Olympics, and she had to do a particular triple Lutz, whatever, I don't know, jump, some sort of fancy jump. And she couldn't do it. She kept falling out. She could do it in practice, but she couldn't seem to get it in competition. So he was working with her on that. And one time when they were doing EMDR, he noticed that her eyes kind of wobbled a little bit in one particular place. And so on a whim, instead of going back and forth, he just held his hand in that place, and he let her process from that place. And she just shared all this stuff. She purged all kinds of emotional stuff. And that they had not uncovered in a year of working together. So that session was over and she left. He didn't really think much about it. She called the next day. She said, I did the jump. And she was able to do the jump successfully every time after that. So he started playing around with it. He had some of the people that he was supervising also play around with it, and brain spotting was born. So brain spotting basically says that where you look affects how you feel. And if we can, when we experience something, we have these little, I don't think we could really find them, but we have like these little capsules of trauma stored in our brain. So we have these memory pockets that, and we also, again, are connected to our body. So our body might remember something that our brain cannot retrieve, or our brain remembers something and our body has this experience. So brain spotting engages the brain and the body. If you were in my office, I have these pointers. I don't know if y'all can see this pointer. And like the pointers that teachers used to use to point to the board. It's like the old-fashioned antennas on cars too. And what I would do is I would ask you to think about an event, whatever it was that you came in to see me about. I want you to think about something that's causing you to feel whatever it is you're feeling. And then I want you to find that place in your body. I want you to think about that event and then scan your body and see, where do you feel that? Some people will say, I feel something in my throat, my shoulders, my stomach, my heart, my back. I've had people tell me their legs, any part of the body is really game. And once you find where that place is in your body, I will take the pointer and have you follow it from one side of the room to the other side of the room, using your eyes to follow the pointer. When you, and while you're doing that, I want you to pay attention to your body. And when the pointer gets to a certain place where that feeling in your body is the most pronounced, you would say to me, oh, I can really feel it right there. And then I hold the pointer in that position and you process from this spot. And there's a lot more to it, and I have lots of methods of using it. That's brain spotting in a nutshell. What I like about brain spotting is that you don't have to talk. So like with tapping, typically we say the script out loud, although you don't have to. But when I'm working with someone, I do have to kind of interview them and understand what it is we're tapping on before we can work on it. With brain spotting, you don't have to do that. With brain spotting, you can come into my office and you can say, I was abused as a child and I don't need to know any more than that. And the reason that that is good is because when we have trauma in our life, no matter what it is, if we retell the story, we stand the risk of re-traumatizing ourselves. And so in doing brain spotting, it's a much gentler and kinder way of getting to issues. And I'm happy to listen if somebody wants to share. Obviously, that's why I'm there. I'm there to witness the process, but you don't have to share the things that maybe you don't want to share, and you still heal, which is what's remarkable. So what I wanted to teach you today is gaze spotting, because this is a tool that you can do on your own. I don't like people to do brain spotting on their own unless they've done it for a while, because it can bring up stuff. It really does help to get to the nonverbal part of our brain and experience things sometimes in a very deep way. So I like to be with people when that happens so I can make sure that they feel safe. But gaze spotting is a positive tool that you don't have, it's more of how to manage stress. So with gaze spotting, what you are going to do, if you think about it, and I want you to do this maybe over the next day, watch people when you're talking to them. When you ask them a question or they're telling you a story, watch what they do with their eyes. Because you will notice, you'll start noticing, like if you ask somebody a question. So like if I said, so Katrina, tell me more about your master's degree, I'm really interested. She might go, all right, well, so she's thinking, right? She's looking up and she's thinking, she's pulling information from somewhere else, okay? That's a spot for her. She's pulling information. So watch people, because you'll see that their eyes are gonna go in certain places. And that's what we're talking. We're trying to access that information that's in their brain by following their eyes. So with gaze spotting, what I want you to do, it's called a resource spot. So it's a spot that you can go to that makes you feel calm and makes you feel present and grounded. So if you know where that gaze spot is, you can put your eyes in that location anywhere you are, any place, not just in the room you're currently sitting in, and access that calm sense. Now, some people call it their God spot. There are two different ways of going about this. If you want to find a God spot, if you believe in God or a higher power, then think about, I want you to like close your eyes and think about your higher power. Think about what that feels like when you are praying or in that presence. And notice where you feel that in your body. If you want to do just a gaze spot and just call it a gaze spot, then I want you to do like we did with heart math. I want you to go to a place that is calm, that is a place where you feel centered and quiet. Go to a place maybe where if you were holding I have cats, and when they sit in my lap, I have that really good sense of calm. Reminds me of when I held my children when they were babies. So find that place of that really sense of quiet. So I'm going to stop talking for a minute and let you find that spot for yourself in your body. And once you have that thought of whatever it is that makes you feel calm, and you have that body sensation, I want you to take your eyes and start on your right. And you don't have to turn your head, but you can. Just look to the far right of the room, and then slowly bring your eyes towards the center. And then continue your eyes from the center to your left. And find where that spot is, where that feeling in your body is the most pronounced. And when you find that place, stop. And it can be anywhere on that range. And if you haven't found it the first time, then do a second pass until you find it. Now, once you've found that spot, I want you to take your eyes above eye level to eye level and below eye level, and see if any one of those on that plane, on the vertical plane, if one of those spots is the most pronounced. It might still be eye level, but it might be higher or lower. And I want you to just notice where that spot is. So notice if you're looking to your left and up, to your right, to the middle and down. If you're in this room often, maybe you want to put a Post-it on that spot or make some sort of visual note of where that spot is so you can easily find it. But also just notice where that position is, where your eyes are, because again, you can do this anywhere, in any time, any place. Okay, and if you want to come back to the center of the room and to me, this is a really cool exercise. I actually use this resource spot when I do brain spotting. When I have somebody who's super activated, I will help them find a resource spot along with the activation spot, and they can go between the two. So this is a way that people can process something that's upsetting but still have a quiet place. It's another reason why brain spotting is so gentle, because it allows people to pace themselves and to keep themselves quiet and grounded in the face of processing something upsetting. So if anyone has any questions at the Q&A, I'll answer questions about brain spotting. Super effective, amazing tool. And I've given you I'll send you, if anyone wants this, I'll send you, this is the script for how to find your gaze spot in case you forget, or if you want to share this with other people, like your patients. This would be a really nice thing if somebody was in chemo or somebody was about to talk to a doctor, that they could find their gaze spot to help them to settle down while they're in the process of receiving something that might be difficult to receive. So I also made a list of stress management techniques. If we brainstorm together, we'd probably come up with a bunch of others as well. But these are just some other things that people can use. And you may have your own things that you like to use. Obviously, meditation, EFT, which we just did, exercise, which Jill is going to talk about in a little while. Going outside I really cannot emphasize this enough. I think with COVID, it's been harder for some people, I think it's been harder. And for some people, I think they're going out more than they ever did, which is good. There is something called forest bathing, which is a Japanese term, which literally means just going out into the woods. We need to surround ourselves by greenery and getting the oxygen from the plants and being connected to the earth. So getting outside, getting some sunshine. Vitamin D levels are tanking during COVID. I talked to a pediatrician's office recently and they said everyone is on vitamin D supplements because everyone is in the tank. So if you can get people outside, if they need to go out in a wheelchair, however they need to get outside, just get them out there, get some sunshine. Deep breathing we've done, ditching the screens, making some sort of a healthy tea. I can't see, dance. Practice mindfulness, which is being in the present. Anxiety is about worrying about the future and depression is about worrying about the past. But when you practice mindfulness, you are in the present, which is all we have. So if you can help people to stay present, and that is a practice because it is hard, it takes time to learn how to do that. Connecting with somebody that you love, smiling. We have something in our brains called mirror neurons, which means that if we do something, somebody mirrors that back to us. So if we smile, people smile back. And I used to have people practice this when we could see each other, where I would say, just go to the grocery store and smile at someone and watch what happens. And when you smile at somebody, they smile back. Now, even with our masks on, you can tell someone's smiling. You can look at their eyes and tell. So practice that. See what happens if you smile, even if you don't feel like smiling. Even when you don't feel like smiling and you smile, your brain actually gets the message that you are happy. Oddly enough, even if you are not, you can fake a smile and your brain still gets the message. Listen to music, doing visualization, hanging out with friends, doing yoga, getting crafty, learning how to knit, needlepoint, make boxes, whatever it is. Read, and again, you probably have a million other things that you could come up with if we were to talk about this as a group. So this is a picture of our beloved river. I took this picture a couple months back. It was a beautiful morning. And this was a quote, I think that Alice put in one of our newsletters that said, "The river knows there is no hurry, we shall get there someday," which is a wonderful statement about mindfulness and just being present and trying to take things as they come. And that is my complete presentation for today. Thank you so much for listening. And again, if you want any of the PowerPoint or any of the handouts that you might need.
All right, thank you, Vicki. I'm going to see if we have any questions. If you have any questions, you can drop them in the chat. While we're waiting for some questions, I'll go ahead and just put a poll out there based on some of Vicki's content. I'll launch the poll now. You can just vote on the poll just to get some interactivity going here. So where are you working from right now? We know that some people are working from home, but some people are still in the office. So let us know where you're working from. Can you all see the responses on your side? All right, just a couple more seconds on that. Let us know where you're working from. Looks like a lot of people, looks like it's split between people working from home and working in the office. Okay, I'll go ahead and end that. So here are the results. So it's really a 50-50, about a 50-50 split. And then we have some people that are working from home and the office. All right, and then I have another poll. So out of Vicki's relaxation methods, which one do you think you'll use? And you can choose more than one, I believe, on this poll. Right, we have about 9 more seconds to vote. All right, so it looks like most people will use the quick coherence technique, Vicki, and the emotional freedom technique, but then we have deep breathing as well on here as the majority. And some people will use all of them. All right, so if we don't have any questions, we do have a 5-minute break. When we come back, Alice will kind of make an announcement when we're about to come back, and then we'll go into groups. So we do invite you to turn your cameras on for the groups. So if you have a little lipstick you want to throw on, maybe pull your hair back, we do invite you to turn your camera on. We will be in breakout sessions, which will be 4 sessions, which each one of us, Alice, myself, Jill, and Vicki. And in that group, you'll be able to discuss different questions that we have with your group members. And then we'll come back as a larger group and report out on that. I did get a question, Vicki. Is Vicki? Yep. Someone said, do you accept or bill insurance? What are your rates for people without insurance?
Yeah, I just answered. I don't accept insurance. I'm a cash-based practice, but I do provide super bills. So if people have out-of-network coverage, they can file. But I do also offer a sliding scale. So usually that's based on the person's needs. So I have seen people for $5 an hour. I've seen people for 150. My regular rate is 175. So I don't want money to get in the way of people needing services. So they just need to ask, and we can talk about what they need.
All right. Well, thank you. We'll set a timer for 5 minutes, and we'll meet back here at 9:58.
Yeah, let's don't be specific here. Okay, that's good. Thank you, Vicki.
My pleasure. I'll be right back.
Hello. Okay. All right.
So I don't think we'll be able to chat with everyone when we're in the breakout group. So if you do encounter any issues or anything, just send me a quick email. But you should be fine.
Okay, so you're thinking, so you're saying about the chat won't work for everybody, or what are you saying?
I think you'll only be able to chat with your group. I don't think you'll be able to chat with me or
Okay.
outside the group.
Okay. Okay. I got my COVID hair going today. Anybody else good with their COVID hair?
All right.
All right. Welcome back.
Yeah.
I've actually got, in 30 seconds, I'll be at 10 o'clock. So
Okay.
that sounds
All right.
good.
So is everyone ready to go in the group?
All right.
All right.
Here we go.
Hi, everyone.
Hey, Katrina.
Hi. All right, so we'll just go around and everyone can say who you are, give a quick introduction, and then we'll go into some of the questions that we prepared to have as discussion points today. So I'll get started. I'm Katrina, as you know, and I'm a member of the Georgia Core team, and I work on the navigation and survivorship programs. And I've been really leading the CPNG efforts this past year or so. So really great, really excited to be here and learn from you all and hear everything that you have to say today. I see Claire beside me, so I'll say, Claire, would you like to go next?
Sure. I'm Claire Seveno. I'm an oncology certified nurse, and I am the owner of Clarity Patient Advocates. And I work mostly with cancer patients.
And Claire did a webinar with CPNG back in May, which seems like last month, but it was 3 months ago. So,
I know, hard to believe.
yeah. All right. Next we have Deb.
Hi, my name is Deb Doherty. I'm an associate professor and department chair at Oakland University in Michigan. I am also a breast cancer survivor, and I work with breast cancer patients, but I also teach in our graduate certificate for oncology rehab. So I'm very involved educationally, teaching physical therapists how to treat patients diagnosed with cancer. And I'm here because I know Jill. I'm working on one of the international research projects that she's working on. So I'm so thrilled to be here. Thank you.
Awesome. Welcome. All right, next we have Kim.
Hi, I'm a physical therapist, and I'm actually a rehab navigator in my oncology office. I'm 3 days a week in the clinic and 2 days in the administrative office, working on oncology navigation as far as the rehab.
They're not. I was facilitating. Anyone? Kim, how about you? No? Putting you on the spot? Okay, I'll just go ahead. And can they unmute themselves or no, Katrina?
I think they can.
Oh, okay. So if I say something wrong, then you can sort of guide me. But just a quick summary of our group in terms of our conversation. We talked a lot about, I did take a few notes, give me 1 second. So we talked a fair bit about the effect of starting really with COVID, the effect on our patients specifically, and how much concern about patients, as well as people trying to figure out how to get our patients cared for that needed it. And an example would be Faith, who works in the public health arena. The diagnostics are shut down. People are basically redeployed to do COVID testing. And there's patients that are missing out on, or that are not getting the screening that they need from the public health system. And you all know that, but we got into talking about sort of that all patients are not getting cared for in the same way, whether it's from diagnostics through to actual treatment management with delayed surgeries, along to the survivorship end. You know, people are getting lost. And there's definitely, we talked a little bit, I brought up, there's studies out there already that are already published about sort of how that's affecting minorities and people who are socioeconomically disadvantaged. The disparities are basically that we're already there. COVID is increasing them. So our concern as healthcare providers, causing stress because of what's happening with our patients. When we talked more about our personal sort of journey through COVID, we did talk a lot about the stress about as being parents of kids with of kids that are at home, and the anxiety both related to decision making about school, no school, whichever way you choose. There's no right answer. And figuring out how to accept that once you've made a decision that works for your family, having to accept that was something Kim brought up, of that's a way of dealing with that anxiety, is making a decision and moving on. We talked a lot about a whole new set of issues and experience that cause anxiety. And kind of the things that we were worried about on March 1st are quite different on as of March 20th. What might have caused anxiety, for example, I just brought up a silly example, but you know, where your kid might play sports this spring was what we were thinking about, or maybe anxious about, or a trip that we were going to take. As of March 20th, and we talk about anxiety, but the things that are causing our anxiety these days are really big, significant life things. School, no school, anxiety over elderly parents that may be basically on lockdown. Angie brought that up, and I have to share the same issue. So the anxiety we mentioned, it's sort of like anxiety with a capital A. Most of us have life and death kinds of things we're anxious about. Then we also talked a little bit about at the end, we were talking about the having to kind of reframe our resilience at the beginning. You know, you sort of go, okay, we can manage this. It'll just be a month or two. And so we build our resilience and however we're going to deal with it. And then suddenly or not suddenly, but gradually we realize, yeah, this isn't going to be a month or two. We have to get new resilience techniques. It's going to go on till the summer. And then you start to realize, no, that's not going to happen. So I think that's a whole different, we thought it was going to be a block of time that we could figure out how to be resilient through. And that clearly isn't the case. And just several people in our group brought up sort of how we deal with that. And you really just need to do, you know, 1 day, 1 week, 1 month at a time, because none of us knows when this will be over, and we have to constantly reframe that. So I don't know if that sort of captures most of what we talked about, but lots going on both with our patients and ourselves.
Thank you. That sounds like a great discussion. And you're so right about the reframing things day by day, because I remember thinking in March, oh yeah, we'll be fine by summer. Now summer has come and gone. We're still here. So we just,
yeah, our boss was like, oh, 2 weeks. That's what it'll be. 2 weeks. Yeah, well, oh well. So
and then it was 2 months, and then it was August.
There you go. Hi, Angie. So I was part of group 2, and I when we got the 1 minute warning, I said, okay, I'm assigning you because no one has volunteered. So we see Sandra down there in the corner. Our discussion kind of went a little different way. There's a lot of similarities. I kind of read through the questions and kind of guided them in the way that we thought might be important. We had a range of people who have had experience to no experience who were hired during COVID. So Sandra, do you want to go on and chat a little bit?
Sure, I'd love to. And we had such a great diverse group of experience, and just even the platform that we're all working in was so different. Even where we are in the country was different too. That we could have kept talking for a long time, which I think is why we couldn't get anybody to volunteer, because we are still talking. But so much of what Jill said was saying, same for our group too. Dealing with the anxiety of your children and school, and are they going back to school? Aren't they going back to school? Dealing with older parents, the anxiety around that. But some other things that we were talking about was just from a professional standpoint, having to really stretch and become creative in how we're reaching our clients. And then on the flip side of that, from a professional development standpoint, we're all getting emails on a daily basis about this CEU that's available, and all these programs that are coming in for the most part for free that are available to us. And how do you, ferret out what is best for you, and how much more time do we want to spend on Zoom? I was sharing that I did a great program with Triage Cancer a couple of weeks ago, but it was an 8-hour program about insurance. And by the end of the day, I was absolutely brain dead. So knowing that, for me, that's, not necessarily the best use of my time. And then from a personal resilience standpoint too, just knowing what's going to work for us, having the opportunity to make those social connections in a safe way, and doing the self-care, the importance of exercise, the importance of being outside. Those were just some of the things I think in addition that we talked about. And Amy, I know you were going to talk too, so I'm going to punt to you as well.
And before we go to Amy, Sandra, can you share, can you introduce yourself to the group?
Oh, sure. I'm Sandy Pyle. I'm the oncology nurse navigator at the Lawrence Smith Center for Cancer Support at Piedmont Athens Regional in Athens, Georgia.
Awesome, thank you.
Oh, and I settled in when Alice called you out, Sandra. I was like, ooh, I got off the hook on this one. So, all right. I don't know how eloquent I'll be after that, but our group had a lot, as they said, a lot of the same discussion as Jill's group too. But yeah, pretty heavily on the fact that a few of us started our jobs either at the beginning or in the middle of COVID, which changed a lot of things. And, even we had experience going into it, but of course it's a different world now. So that's kind of added some different challenges. But we also did agree that it's really allowed us all to be a bit more creative in how we reach people, reaching out in circumstances like this, and finding people that are going through what we're going through and realizing that we're not alone. So as much as we want our patients to be doing that, this is a fantastic reminder that we have to be doing the same thing. And I think a lot of us shared really on that balance of that work life and all of the stressors that we're feeling, that when Jill said it's like anxiety with a capital A, it's like, yeah. And it's like, when there's no end in sight to it. And Alice had a great analogy of it's like a marathon, but you don't know where the ending is. So you're just like constantly training. It's like, okay, how much more can I do today? So it's nice to share that with all of us, so that, again, we know that we're not alone and we just are constantly just doing the best that we can. So I don't know if I forgot anything else glaring that you guys want to add in, but.
I would just add where you're calling from and
Oh.
the fact of what time you started this. I think that's important.
Oh my goodness. Minor detail, ladies. Yes, so I feel like I am part of you all, even though I do not live in Georgia. I actually live in Nevada. But I am one of those people that started my job March 16th. So I was sharing with the group. I had one day in the office and then I was sent to home. And like, here's your new program. I am a nurse navigator. And I came into, it's called Nevada Cancer Coalition. So I wanted to shift into more of that community health side and really bringing these survivorship programs to our state, which is really exciting, but totally new role, you know, from going as a facility nurse to this. And I reached out to Katrina, who got me in touch with Jill, and it's been this fantastic connection with them. And I've just felt so incredibly welcomed by you all, and I've learned so much from you. And yeah, so as always, I appreciate you welcoming me into this group, even though I'm kind of like this little outsider over here. But yeah, so I decided to do this with you all this morning, which might seem crazy, but I needed it. And it was 5:30 for me, which is probably why I looked like I was in a cave when we first started. But the sun is up now, so it's all good.
Wow.
Thanks so much, Amy, for joining so early, and you are part of us. We welcome you.
Yeah. All right, and group number 3 was my group, and Claire is going to report out for us. It worked out well because I got a volunteer at the very beginning, so we had someone.
But it was the silence that kind of forced me into it. I was the only other one on camera, so you knew. I was like, thank you, Katrina. I'm Claire Seveno. I'm in Atlanta, Georgia, and I'm a cancer patient, an oncology certified nurse, and a patient advocate for my own business, Clarity Patient Advocates. And we talked a lot. I felt like a lot of what we discussed was centered around change and the ways that were positive, the ways that we changed or things are changing that might be permanent, and what that might mean long term. As far as our workspace and what things look like now versus 6 months ago, definitely more virtual, more people are open to it. It kind of foisted us into this position of having to make a change about being more flexible with virtual appointments, which I think ultimately may help our patients because it gives them more access to some of the services that some patients may not have had access to. And there's less travel and just, more learning more technologies to make things work and being, adaptive. And it's allowed, there have been a tremendous number of webinars and CE opportunities. And I think our group was acknowledged that we have more time because most of us are working from home, or at least have for some part of this time, and utilizing that time to either get out and exercise more, which is what I've been doing with my husband. Katrina mentioned that she's taken that time to get outside and just trying to nurture ourselves by taking some of that time to be active, but also taking the opportunity to participate in many of these webinars and CE opportunities that are coming our way. And the remoteness of things now has also allowed for more distant networking, which is, to Amy's point, here she is in Nevada and is kind of connected with her Georgia peeps. And I think that's something that may be a change that'll be permanent and that we may benefit from. So we talked a lot about how there's, this sense of social isolation now, and that we may never get back to the point where we are meeting as much in person and there's that physical connection, the hugging or the handshaking or the meeting in groups and that sort of thing. And what does this mean long term for us as a group and for people that may be socially isolated? We also talked about prioritizing time, and again, it meant, you know, we have our time that's kind of shifted and doing more nurturing for ourselves, but also connecting more to others virtually. I'm trying to think of what else we talked about. The creativity, I think, was something else we kind of talked about, is that people are finding ways to adapt, and even with, for example, the masks, that now you're seeing these creative masks that people are making that matching their outfits, and, you know, getting creative in how you're meeting. There are more outside meetings, and even I know some classrooms are having their classes meet outside when the weather permits. So just a lot of adaptation that some will stick and some maybe not, but, you know, and some for the good and some maybe have some long-term consequences. Katrina, did I miss anything?
I think you hit all of the key points there, so thank you. So not least, group number 4.
So Donna, are you still willing to share?
I'm here. I've sort of kind of gotten drafted into the spokesperson thing, but anyway, basically we talked about a lot of the same things that y'all have already mentioned. Of course, adaptation is key right now. We have to be able to adapt to whatever we're doing. My particular experience has been a lot different from a lot of y'all's because I am working in the office and not at home. And I think probably, so my work world has not changed as much as most of yours has. I think that people working from home, we talked about the fact that generally people are working more. And then sometimes there may be a little, it may be a little more difficult to distinguish between stopping work and home. On the other hand, at home, you know, you can take a break during the day and go out with your children or take a quick walk or something like that. We talked a lot about self-care and how what kind of things we want to continue after COVID that have started during this time, and what we probably would like to go back to normal. We also talked about how, like y'all have mentioned, that it kind of has made the world smaller, and it has also helped us realize that we have shared experiences, that we're all kind of, you know, just to use the cliche, we're in this together, and we're just made more aware with the Zoom and all that. It is difficult having the personal connection that we had before, but I think that's about it. Is there anything that I've missed from people in my group?
No, I think you covered it really well.
Okay. Wonderful. Everybody just did great things. And I always think this is one of my favorite parts. Whenever we have these, because we have time to understand we're not alone, that we are in this together, and that we can communicate with each other, which I think is part of the thing. What CPNG can do to support you is to remember that you have people to reach out to. Again, resources will be available for you. I do want to also be respectful of physical needs, and so we can take our 5-minute break. Please remember to write on your evaluations about anything like this, that you might like more of this or less of this, or oh my gosh, that was enough, or whatever you want to say about things that you would like us to do. Because now that we have this virtual platform thing, maybe it is more accessible, as I think Claire said, or Vicki's group. I think we all kind of said that we're learning a different way, whether it's with our families or whoever it is. So with that in mind, I've got 11:13. So do you want to come back at 11:18? and and then we will have Jill will present more stuff about some physical things, which maybe we can use now that we've been sitting for a couple of hours, right? Okay, see you in a bit.
Alice, do you want me to go ahead and share my screen?
Sure, that'd be good. And we know that we're ready to go.
You want me to be done in about a half an hour, right?
No, you're good. You got your time. Don't rush yourself. We had said 45 minutes to an hour. You're good. You're good. It's 11:17. So we're supposed to be done by 12:30. We're well within.
I think I'll be done by noon. So
okay, perfect. That's perfect. I don't want you to feel rushed. You have good things to share. I loved the breakout sessions. I really did. I think I loved it. I appreciate Amy. I did sort of coerce my people into that. You know, my people didn't volunteer. I volunteered them. It was like.
I'll remember that, Alice.
I just have to say, I appreciate Kimberly Higgins has the most lovely little soothing thing going on there. I like that. And Marilyn, I got your message. Yes, I agree with you. I got a message from one of our participants who said that one thing we need to recognize is that, yes, we're talking about all these stressors that we're having, but also recognize that we have been flexible and we have moved forward and we have found ways to be more creative. So I think that's a really, really good point. Thank you. Okay, so let's see if I can see. Good. We did this thing for my daughter graduated from college. She's now in grad school, just to fill up the space here. My daughter graduated and we had a virtual graduation Zoom. We would have normally had a party for that sort of thing. And I've got relatives all over the country, including not necessarily Nevada, but Colorado and California. So it was creative finding a time, as I'm sure you can appreciate, Amy. So we had all these people there and it was fun because the family ranges in age from 80s to 18. And so to see the range of flexibility and ability with some of the technology was funny because a couple of my siblings had never used Zoom. And this is in May, so that many of us were well into it. So it was interesting to see the variation. And we had another Zoom call not long ago, and I was happy to see that even my family is educable, and they got better about the ways that they can use Zoom. So instead of being lying down on a sofa so that all you could see is like the top of their heads, they've learned to sit up and aim the camera where they can see them. So it's been, it's a learning thing. So, okay, so I've got 11:20. So I believe we will go on and get started with Jill Binkley. And she will focus on movement as medicine and the focus of exercise and get us moving a little bit. So there you go, Jill. Thank you.
Thanks, Alice. And thanks everyone for being here. We had a great chat in our breakout session too. That was wonderful. And I really want to say to begin with, being a healthcare provider in oncology, we all know that it's stressful, it's difficult, and it's obviously even more of a challenge during COVID-19, both for us personally, as we all chatted about in our breakout sessions, but also for us professionally. We're seeing our patients that may have delayed diagnosis, may have delayed intervention or treatment. So while I'm talking really to you directly about the importance of movement for us and the importance of exercise for us and self-care, these are things obviously we can use with our patients, but just remember this is really about you this morning. So we tended in our group too, we kept going back to, well, our patients are feeling this way, and as a healthcare provider we do that a lot, but it's also important to take care of ourselves. So that's just the usual disclaimer, but it is important. I am going to be talking about exercise, so it is important that while I'm talking about things like target heart rates and that kind of thing, it's clear that we don't want to take this out of context. If you have medical issues or are not a regular exerciser, definitely check in with your doctor and that kind of thing before you sort of take this to the bank. Just a little bit about where I come from. Turning Point, if you haven't heard about Turning Point Breast Cancer Rehab, we're a nonprofit. We're in the Atlanta area in Sandy Springs. We have a mission to meet the needs of women and men going through breast cancer, improving quality of life by promoting, providing, and advocating specialized and evidence-based rehabilitation. And because we're a nonprofit, care can be provided regardless of ability to pay. And just to give you a feel, we have physical therapy, and that's one of my roles as a physical therapist and program director. We also have massage therapy, not during COVID-19. We have a nutrition, we have a counselor, and we really do try to bring together a collaboration of services to really help women both spiritually, emotionally, and physically as they go through breast cancer. So that's sort of where I'm coming from. And typically I'm giving the exercise talk to patients going through cancer, but it certainly is all relevant for us as well. So hopefully you have a little pad and paper or your iPhone and notes, but I'm going to do what's difficult to do when we're not in person, but I'm going to stop here and give everyone a couple of minutes to think about what are the barriers to your exercising and moving more, either generally or during COVID, or if you're already doing some exercise, should you be doing more? Do you have that sense, yeah, I do a little bit, but it's just one day a week? What are the barriers to doing what you sort of really feel you need to do? So just jot them down, 2 or 3 barriers, 10 barriers, whatever it is that might be stopping you, whether it's time, interest, laziness. Be really honest, because we're not together. I can't see your paper, so it's okay to put, yeah, I just really don't feel like it. So take just a minute and think about your barriers. We should have got Alice to sing during this.
I could get my dog to sing if you'd like.
Are you writing barriers, Alice?
I already wrote my barriers.
Good. Okay, then we can move on since Alice has finished. Everyone else must be. So according to the CDC, they've actually done research on this. The top 3 barriers to engaging in physical activity across the adult's lifespan are time, and that could be time, real time, or it could be perceived lack of time. And it may be priorities in time, but it includes all of that. Energy, just not feeling like doing it, and motivation. And they're the 3 things that adults in the US say are their barriers to physical activity. And so they can be divided up into subcategories, and they're also different for different adult lifespan years. So for younger people, it tends to be more time. For older folks, and I include older folks, yeah, me, over 60, it might be more energy, just don't have the energy to do it. So we're going to talk about breaking down those barriers today. Interesting, there's already research coming out about physical activity and psychological health during COVID-19. This study, and I'm just highlighting a couple of things that seemed relevant for this morning, but there's actually more out there already as well. This study looked at over 2,500 men and women in Italy, so early in COVID-19. And they found that there was a significant reduction in total physical activity during COVID. They also looked at the relationship between psychological health and well-being as it relates to activity level. And what they found was that the people that were maintaining a regular exercise routine also had much better mental health. And the forced rest, they, with their analysis, really looked at a significant relationship between decreased physical activity and psychological distress. And this is a different study, not related to COVID-19, but they looked at the association between the amount of physical activity based on current guidelines for exercise and the relationship between how many people meet that and what levels of psychological distress people have. And they found in this study that about 17% of adults experience high levels of psychological distress. And then when they looked at activity level, and you can imagine about 1/3 of the people in this study did not adhere to any physical activity guidelines, so 0. About 1/3 they actually met a moderate to vigorous aerobic activity guidelines, and about a third actually met both. There's strength guidelines as well, strengthening guidelines, and so about a third met both aerobic and strength guidelines. And what they found was that the likelihood of experience high psychological distress was lowest in people who met both the aerobic and strength guidelines. And I think we all kind of know that. We're in the healthcare field, but it's interesting that we're actually seeing this in studies that are coming out. When this strength was added, the next level down was people who were only meeting the aerobic guidelines. Strengthening only didn't seem to have much effect. So the bottom line of this study, the take-home message is we really need to be thinking, if we're thinking about psychological well-being and taking care of ourselves physically and emotionally, both aerobic and strength components of an exercise program are very important. This study looked at just generally compassion, mindfulness, and happiness of healthcare workers. And they looked at how much of these items around the side of the heart, how much do each of those contribute to the happiness and well-being of healthcare providers? And they found that spirituality, social support, self-care behaviors like nutrition and exercise, as well as awareness of emotional and physical needs, they all contribute somewhat to our overall happiness. But the big one was self-compassion. It stood out as a much more important in this study. So mindfulness and coping with isolation. Interesting, this wasn't a COVID-19 study, and yet COVID-19 has brought this whole feeling of isolation. So I thought that was an important thing to think about as it relates to our happiness and well-being as a healthcare provider. What was also interesting is that in my mind, and this wasn't the study, if you think about this whole area of self-compassion, mindfulness, I'm not sure they don't feed into all of the other things, because if you are living your life with self-compassion and being mindful, you're probably more inclined to do the self-care behaviors. Think about your spirituality, think about your own emotional and physical needs. So the study actually separated them all, but I think that's an important piece of all of this as well, that this whole area is probably very much feeding these others. So thinking about the presentation, I came up with this sort of sense that really as healthcare providers, especially taking care of patients going through cancer treatment or after cancer treatment, you know, we need time to mend so that we can take care of our patients. It's, as Vicki said, it's, you know, putting your mask on first. And especially during COVID-19, when our lives are completely disrupted, for better sometimes and for worse, really taking the time to think about mind, exercise, nutrition, and even downtime. One of the things, and I'm going to share my own experiences as I go through, but with respect to downtime, I am working at home much more than usual. And some of the differences, back-to-back Zoom calls where you would never, so you might have 2 or 3 or 4 meetings in a morning. And Alice and I have talked about this, where you would never be able to plan those kind of meetings, especially in Atlanta with traffic. You wouldn't be able to plan that kind of in-person type of meetings so frequently. And so sometimes I'm finding personally, it gets to sort of 6 in the evening, I'm still working, but then I go immediately into what I would normally have, that gap, that drive, whatever the break between. So kind of making sure we're also planning downtime, which many of us as busy healthcare providers and all of our other roles in life, it may be hard to do that, but something to think about. So we're going to talk specifically about exercise, and I'm going to use the FIT principle, which is used in all of the exercise physiology world. And I've adapted it a little bit to, we've got 2 T's here. So we're going to think about FIT squared. So frequency, intensity, type, and time. What do the guidelines tell us we need to do, and how can we put that into our lives and incorporate that into our life on a practical basis? So here's the guidelines. The frequency of exercise, ideally 4 times a week. It doesn't necessarily have to be the same thing every time. It can be a walk one day. It can be an elliptical another day. It can be a bike ride with your kids another day. So certainly can be varied, and that might work for you, and that might be great as long as you sort of feel, okay, I've got my 4 times in. It can be something different each time. Some of us, though, are more like, no, I need to get up and just do X, Y, and Z, and it's not going to get done if I think too much about it. It needs to be a little more rote. So some of us are people that would do best with varying. Some of us are more a little more regimented. There is a lot of online calendars and trackers that you don't necessarily need to measure 4 times a week. We get that, but they can be really fun, and you can track your minutes, and some of them are really cute with different things that pop up on your phone when you've met your weekly goal. So have a look for those, because they can actually kind of be a little motivator. Intensity. So the intensity we think about as heart rate, and we're going to, here's the scientific way, and then I'll give you kind of a little way to think about that's a little more practical. So your maximum heart rate, ballpark, without doing in-depth fitness testing, is about 220 minus your age in healthy individuals. And then your heart rate during aerobic exercise should be around 50 to 80% of maximum. And we'll talk a little bit more about this on the next couple of slides. Obviously, if you're not already exercising and you're having health issues, I'm going to say this about 3 times, check in with your doctor and work up to this gradually. So if you look at this, you can quickly look at where you would come across. You can do the math. You don't need me to do this, but for someone like me, I'm going to say I'm 60, but I'm not quite. I'm a little between here. So my maximum heart rate is about 160 beats per minute, 220 minus my age. So I should be exercising in and around the range of 80 to 136. And just to give you a feel, our resting heart rate is typically somewhere between 60 and 100. Everyone's different, and it depends on our age and our actual training level, exercise training, and how much we normally do. So this can be kind of funky, but there's lots of Fitbits and Apple Watches and different watches that you can do to get your heart rate very easily now. And that's something that might be a motivator for you, to really actually watch your heart rate as you exercise. So targets, if you're just starting out, you might aim for the lower range in your target rate, like that 50%, and gradually build up to the higher range. This is a little practical way of monitoring your exercise activity, which might suit more of you if you're not people that want to sort of get a watch on and actually do that. But basically, where you would typically want to be is in this moderate to vigorous activity, and it gives you an actual specific scale for. So if you're doing moderate activity, you would be breathing heavily. You could hold a short conversation, comfortable, but definitely a little more challenging than just easy breezy having a full conversation. And then more vigorous activity, kind of where we put ourselves at borderline uncomfortable, a little short of breath, but still able to speak a sentence. So in terms of where we want to be with our intensity of exercise, in order to meet the guidelines for exercise, we want to be in this 4 to 8 range. It also can go up and down as we work. You know, when you might be out for a vigorous walk, and you might brisk it up a little bit of light jogging, and then go back down again. It doesn't have to stay at that same level for the whole time, especially if you're starting out. A type of exercise. If we're thinking as back to both psychological and physical well-being, your exercise should include components of strength, aerobics, and stretching. The aerobics, as I said, was 4 times a week is the minimum, 4 to 5. But strength and stretching doesn't have to be done every day, and they can be intermittent. So in terms of timing, you might do a little bit of strength, some upper body and core strength one day, and then a couple of days later might incorporate some lower body strength with some more core. So it can be played around with, so you're not having to do all of it every day. And in fact, muscles need to rest between when we do our aerobic strengthening. For a lot of us, lower impact may be preferable to higher impact, like running and that kind of thing. Walking is very acceptable. We're not talking about running marathons here. Brisk walking is great. Elliptical, swimming, rowing, cycle and spinning might be options for you. And thinking about different locations. A lot of us, if you're living in an apartment, you can hopefully get out and get to a park or get to a walking path out in your community. If I put shopping mall, I haven't been to a shopping mall in probably since last Christmas, but they're probably fairly empty and offer an air-conditioned space for you to walk in if that's something, especially when it's so hot outside. Home stuff, even something simple, a skipping rope. Cost effective, but it's a great aerobic exercise and it can be done in a very small space. There's lots and lots of online options for exercise classes right now, and they're coming out more and more, and they're fairly cost effective. So that's one of the positives that COVID has done, is a lot of different gyms, a lot of exercise options have come out. They've expanded options to include all different kinds of aerobic exercise, even as simple as walking on the spot. So thinking about indoor versus outdoor, we talked about this, and I think the word that Vicki used was bathing in nature. And I wrote it down and I didn't want to forget it. We'll come back to it. But sort of the whole concept of indoor versus outdoor exercise, they've actually done research on it. And compared with exercising indoors, exercising in a natural environment definitely has been shown to be associated with greater feelings of revitalization, with decreased tension, confusion, anger, and depression. So if you can't do all of your exercise outside, you may want to consider incorporating even 1 or 2 days a week where you're exercising outside to get those added benefits of our physical and emotional well-being. So time, how long do we need to do this to get the benefits that we're talking about? So the standard is 150 of moderate or 75 minutes of vigorous aerobic activity, or a combination. As I said, you can combine moderate and vigorous. So that's in that range that we talked about, where you should be breathing somewhat heavily, but still being able to talk, that 4 to 8 range on that scale. So it really translates to about 30 minutes, 5 times a week is what's recommended. And then the other part of time is the time of day. I personally need to do my exercise first thing in the morning. I actually have a friend who literally puts her workout stuff between her bed and the bathroom. So she literally sort of trips over it when she gets up. So for me, that's important, because if I don't do it then, the day takes over. And it's sort of, oh, I'll do it later, and suddenly the day's ended without it. Unless I'm rowing, and I can row anytime during the day. So it's a balance of how much you like something and are willing to put your day aside for it. And so if you can find something that you love to do, you may not have that issue, but for me, it needs to be very routine if it's just sort of regular old exercise. Timing continued. So thinking about what time during the day, as I said, and when do you actually like to work out? Some people, really feel stiff and sore and achy getting up and doing their exercise in the morning. Maybe you're someone that could work in a break during the middle of the day to do the 30 minutes of walking or whatever you're going to be doing. And this, interesting, the roller coaster analogy of COVID, Vicki and I planned this separately, and I had a roller coaster in my presentation, and so did Vicki. So that's really interesting. That's sort of how I've felt about COVID as well. So we also need to, whenever we make a plan, as we talked about, the plan keeps changing here. So we need to have an exercise plan also that's forgiving and flexible around the roller coaster issues related to COVID. And I know many of you are balancing working from home, spouse working from home, children at home, or if they're not at home, worrying about them at school. So I think that's an important piece, to be forgiving as you develop your exercise plan. So some precautions, of course, checking in with your doctor, start slow, work up to goals slowly, and get professional advice. And we're happy for any of you. My email's all over this. It's at the beginning, it's at the end of my presentation. Feel free to reach out, and if you have questions after today that are specific to you, happy to answer questions by email or phone. So getting started. Many of you are already exercising, and that's great. So maybe this is just a little motivator to get back at it or to bump it up a little bit. But if you're just getting started, really think about how much you enjoy the activity. If it's not something you enjoy, you're not going to stay at it. And my activity that I don't particularly enjoy, that I only did when I was dating my husband, just because we all do things when we're dating that you know you'll never do again, is bike riding. I like spin class, but bike riding, yeah, not me. So try to make sure that it's something you do enjoy. And if you enjoy walking, and you know that, and you can get out and do brisk walking, you can take a couple of weights with you. If that's something you enjoy, you're going to continue to do it. Whether, again, you're more regimented like me, or like a mix and match kind of approach, that's totally fine. Are you someone that likes to do it individually? Just get out there and do it by myself, and do some of our kind of important parts of mindfulness and thinking through at the same time. Some of the things Vicki said could be incorporated if you're on your own. Or do you enjoy more of a group? Is it going to be a motivational thing for you to be meeting up with a few neighbors or friends to do socially distanced walking? And again, that may not be every day, but even once a week, that might be something you look forward to more. The indoor or outdoor, the cost, and again, considering time of day. So the title of this was movement, not just exercise. So thinking about just generally other ways of including movement and activity in your day, making sure that you're getting up from Zoom meetings and Zoom calls and taking a break, going outside on the back porch and taking a few deep breaths, using the stairs rather than like we used to use elevators. I was thinking of that after I put the slide in. Who's not using stairs? Just increasing your pace when you're out shopping or even doing household chores. All of these things are important ways that we can just increase our general activity level. So then keeping at it. It's easy to talk about getting started. It's keeping at it, right? Building it into your daily routine. Many people actually do find that if they schedule it as part of their day, it makes it easier. So you're not thinking about it so much, you just do it. Again, walking with groups, and trying to remember when you're finished exercising or when you have exercised during the morning, how good you feel for the rest of the day. Because if nothing else goes well in your day, you can always sort of think, yeah, but at least I exercised, so it's good. And then again, be forgiving with yourself. If you miss a day, don't dismay. Just get back at it the next day. So we thought about the barriers at the beginning. Maybe we could have some conversation or some questions or comments about what you can do to actually overcome some of those barriers to exercise and movement. Are there things in your life that you might be able to change, adopt, tweak a little bit so that you could incorporate this into your life? Because again, if we're taking care of ourselves, we can better take care of our patients. I think that's it. Thanks.
Thank you, Jill. That was wonderful. And you do have a question. Someone wants to know if Turning Point has exercise classes.
So sorry, I went to the chat room. We do have exercise classes. Obviously they're, well, not obviously. Right now they are online. So we do a Workout Wednesday on our Facebook page. They're geared obviously to our breast cancer patients. However, they're not specific to breast cancer patients. So anyone could hop on to our Facebook and do our Workout Wednesdays. They're live. They're also recorded, so you can go back to them anytime. So that's what we're doing now. We typically have exercise classes in our clinic, but right now we're not doing anything in groups.
Okay. And then I'll add that I discovered this app called Fit On, FITON, and they have all free classes, and they have classes as short as 5 minutes on up to, I think, an hour or more. They're completely free, and they have a variety of yoga, cardio activities, stretching, mindfulness workout. So there's a ton on there. So if you just want to try something and not have to pay for it or commit to that financial price point, they're a great resource. And I'll go ahead and put it in the chat.
Great, thanks.
So I do have 2 polls for Jill's presentation. So I'll go ahead and launch those. And if you have any questions, you can put them in the chat. All right. The first one is, what are your favorite ways to exercise? All right, about 15 more seconds to vote here. All right. So most people said walking. So walking, most people like walking, and then yoga, strength training, running. Awesome. Yeah, I couldn't vote, but I would definitely vote for walking and bike riding. I told the group earlier that I've kind of tried to repurpose my commute to work as a walk. So instead of 45 minutes, I'll go walk, not 45 minutes initially, but maybe 20 minutes in the morning and then go back out in the afternoon and just kind of repurpose time that would have been spent doing something. All right, and I have one more poll. All right. So do you prefer working out indoors or outdoors? I love the sound of that forest bathing. So I'm going to think about that every time I go outdoors now.
Thank you. Forest bathing. That's good.
There you go.
And Atlanta has so many, well, Georgia really, but great outdoor places to go to, so many paths and hiking trails. There's a lot out there. All right, about 20 more seconds to vote. All right, so most people said outdoors or both. No one voted for indoors. So we have a lot of forest bathers here. All right, well, thank you. So I have just a few things to say before we let Alice wrap up, and I'm going to share my screen now. right, so I did want to share that I am a part of kind of the leadership for CPNG, and we want to make sure that you know that we're here to support you in your professional endeavors and make sure that we're providing resources to you that you can use in your work. So we do have a section on the Georgia Core website now called georgiacancer.info.org/CPNG. And it's the hub for CPNG now. So on there, you're able to get a login to log into the CPNG web content. You're able to see other navigators in the directory if they choose to be shown. You're able to access different resources and everything like that. And we will be adding to that area as time progresses so that we have more content for you. And I'll go ahead and click on that just to give you a sneak peek of what that looks like. I have to switch over to share. But we want to make sure that you have everything that you need. So we should have talked about that in some of our breakout groups, like what we can do to support you. So if you think of anything after today that we can do for you, just let us know. We're open to all feedback. Whatever you say, we try to make sure that we do and make sure that we can provide on that. So here's an example of the website. I am logged in so you can see this first section is for everyone, but if you scroll down, you'll see a members only area, and that's where you can see a member directory of all of the navigators that are currently listed in the directory. And if you've been a part of CPNG for a while, you might already be in here. You might just need to log in and refresh your profile. So we might have some old information on you. So if you haven't logged into this yet, please log in and update everything. And also try a couple different email addresses. So if you initially were maybe at another company and now you're at a different one, maybe try your old email address if you can't get in. If you have any trouble though, you can email me and I can assist you. And our email address is cpng@georgiacore.org. All right, let's see. And we also wanted to share that we do have a Facebook group for CPNG. So on Facebook, you can search Cancer Patient Navigators of Georgia and you can find that Facebook group. And we're trying, that's a very new effort. So we're trying to get everyone to be able to connect with each other a little more quickly than you can through email or maybe the newsletters. So you can go on there, you can share events that maybe your practice or system is doing. You can connect with others, ask general questions, and just build a community there in the Facebook group. So we welcome you there. And that is it. I am going to go ahead and put the evaluation and the post test here in the chat, but I'll email it out as well. But if you want to go ahead and start working on it now, since you're here, you can go ahead and do that. And I'll follow up an email with the information. Once the recording is made available, we will get that posted on the website that I just showed you, and you'll be able to access that. And we'll also email out the slideshow and the presentation handouts that Vicki had with all of the different ways that you can relax and meditate. Does anyone have any questions before we wrap up? All right, Alice, I'll pass it over to you.
Okay, as always, I always have something else left to say. I do appreciate everybody being part of this. I was very sad to see that no one said rowing as part of their activity. I think at least 3 of us would have said that, but we weren't allowed to have any input on that, on her little evaluation. I also love, just as I'm an observer of people, as we're in our little group, I watch, there's a lot of people doing this or this or this. So Vicki, you did a great job teaching us about tapping that we can do nobody really noticing as we're going along. I hope that you all will feel welcome whatever state you are in, Amy, as I can see on my screen. So invite your friends. That's what this is a part of, to know that we are not alone. Be willing to reach out to each other through CPNG. I mean, this is what we're trying to do. On the Facebook page, I know that very recently we did post something that the Lawrence Smith Center is doing on their, I believe it's on grief, coming up pretty soon. So if you have things like that could benefit, that's the beauty of where we are right now. most everyone is virtual, and we can try to share those kind of things and have a little more access. I think someone mentioned that as one of the positive of the COVID. So once again, I encourage you to reach out, whether it's to do self-care in emotional kind of way or physical way or professional or personal way. Know that we are all in this together, and we're happy to help you. I'm so happy we did this. I feel wonderful about it, and I hope that you all do too. Please, as Katrina said, please let us know ways we can improve or whatever you like, or those of you that are also willing to jump on the screen and talk. Now, we saw how well a lot of you did with that, so just be thinking about those kind of things. So again, I thank everybody. It's been great to see you. Thanks so much.
And I do want to make one last announcement, Alice.
Good.
If you chose to share your information with everyone that was on the webinar today, I will share information. That way, if you want to connect after this, you can. You'll have everyone's information if you selected that you were open to sharing that.
Yeah. And like Katrina said, pre, post test and evaluation in order to identify what sort of continuing ed you want. Okay. Thanks so much. Have a lovely rest of the day and weekend ahead. Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, Jill. Kim.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Vicki, Katrina, Jill, if you can stay on a minute, perhaps.
Yeah.
Did we lose Jill?